Today, we're diving deep into one of the most intense geopolitical situations unfolding right now, the Baltic Sea tension that has the world on edge. Denmark has taken a bold stand that directly challenges Vladimir Putin and Russia's influence in the Baltic region. This move is reshaping the power dynamics of Northern Europe and could have serious consequences for the balance of power between NATO and Russia. The Baltic Sea, once seen as a calm gateway between East and West, is now turning into one of the most militarized zones in the world. And Denmark, a relatively small nation, has become a central player in this high-stakes confrontation. To understand what's happening, we first need to look at the strategic importance of the Baltic Sea. This narrow body of water connects several key NATO and EU countries: Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Germany, Poland, and the Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, with Russia's access to the sea through Kaliningrad and St. Petersburg. Control of this region is vital for trade, energy routes, and military mobility. Whoever controls the Baltic Sea can essentially control the flow of resources and military power in Northern Europe. And that's exactly why this region is now becoming a flashpoint between NATO and Moscow. For decades, Denmark has played a quiet but crucial role as the gatekeeper of the Baltic. Through the Danish Straits, the narrow channels connecting the Baltic Sea to the North Sea, Denmark holds the key to who can enter or leave. Every Russian warship or commercial vessel must pass through waters that Denmark controls. In times of peace, this isn't a problem, but when tensions rise, that control becomes a strategic weapon, and that's what's happening now. Denmark has started tightening its defense cooperation with NATO, reinforcing military installations, and expanding surveillance in the Baltic region. This has infuriated Moscow, which sees Denmark's actions as a direct threat to its naval freedom. Putin has long seen the Baltic Sea as vital to Russia's access to Europe. Kaliningrad, Russia's heavily militarized exclave between Poland and Lithuania, is a forward base bristling with missiles, air defense systems, and troops. It's essentially Russia's stronghold in the heart of NATO territory. From there, Moscow can monitor, threaten, and, if needed, strike Western targets. But now, as Denmark and its allies tighten their control over the surrounding waters, Kaliningrad is becoming increasingly isolated. Supply lines through the sea could easily be cut off in a conflict. This reality terrifies the Kremlin, which depends on the Baltic for both economic and military access. Recently, Denmark announced it would lead a new NATO initiative to secure the Baltic Sea region against Russian aggression. This includes advanced radar systems, anti-submarine defenses, and joint patrols with neighboring countries like Sweden, Finland, and Poland. This isn't just routine defense cooperation, it's a clear signal that NATO is closing the noose around Russia's western front. The Kremlin has already issued sharp warnings, accusing Denmark of escalating tensions and turning the Baltic into a potential war zone. Russian officials have threatened to respond accordingly if Denmark continues to expand its military presence. This defiance from Denmark didn't happen overnight. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, the entire security landscape of Europe has shifted. Denmark, once cautious about provoking Russia, has transformed into one of NATO's most active contributors in the region. The Danish government has increased defense spending, approved new weapons deals, and sent military aid to Ukraine. And now, with Sweden and Finland joining NATO, Denmark is no longer a lone gatekeeper, but part of a united northern front stretching from the Arctic to the Baltic. This unity is something Putin never wanted to see. His long-term goal was to divide Europe, weaken NATO, and maintain Russia's dominance in its near abroad. Instead, his actions have triggered the exact opposite. At the heart of this rising tension is the question of control: who truly controls the Baltic Sea. Russia claims it has every right to operate freely, arguing that Western militarization is what's causing instability. But NATO sees it differently. They believe that Russian submarines, cyber operations, and disinformation campaigns are what threaten peace in the region. Over the past year, there have been several mysterious incidents involving undersea cables and pipelines, including the Nord Stream explosions, that have only deepened the distrust. Western intelligence points to Russian involvement, though Moscow denies it. Denmark, which has jurisdiction over part of the Nord Stream area, has been leading investigations and tightening maritime security ever since. In Copenhagen, the Danish leadership has made it clear that they will not bow to Russian intimidation. The government has stated that the Baltic Sea must remain free, open, and secure under international law. Denmark has hosted joint NATO exercises that simulate defending the Danish straits from enemy incursions. These exercises are designed to send a message if Russia tries to disrupt NATO access or launch a surprise attack. It will face an immediate and united response. And that message seems to be working. Moscow has started deploying more surveillance aircraft and naval units to monitor NATO's activities, signaling that it's deeply worried about losing control in the region. One of the most symbolic moments came when Danish warships escorted NATO supply vessels through the Baltic, sailing close to Russian waters. The move was bold and deliberate, a demonstration of freedom of navigation that Russia could not ignore. Russian state media erupted in fury, calling it a provocation and accusing Denmark of trying to start a Baltic Sea war. But for Denmark, it was about showing that they will not be intimidated. They know that the stakes are enormous. If Russia ever tried to blockade or attack in the Baltic, the consequences could spark a wider conflict involving all of NATO. The reality is that Denmark's defiance has changed the strategic balance in Europe. For years, NATO's eastern flank was considered vulnerable, but now, with Finland and Sweden fully integrated, that flank has turned into a fortress. The Baltic Sea has become a NATO lake, and Denmark's role as the guardian of its entrance gives it unprecedented leverage. It's no longer just a small Scandinavian nation. It's now a frontline state in a potential confrontation with Russia. The Danish military is being modernized rapidly with new F-35 fighter jets, advanced air defense systems, and upgraded naval fleets designed to detect and counter Russian submarines. Behind the scenes, intelligence sharing between Denmark, Sweden, and Finland has intensified. They are monitoring Russian movements more closely than ever before. Satellite data, radar sweeps, and maritime tracking systems are all feeding into a network designed to ensure no surprise attack can go undetected. The goal is deterrence, to make sure that Russia understands any aggression will be met with overwhelming force. Yet despite this, tensions continue to rise. Russian jets have repeatedly violated NATO airspace in the Baltic. Its navy conducts aggressive maneuvers dangerously close to Allied ships. These are classic intimidation tactics, meant to test resolve and create fear, but the mood in Copenhagen is defiant. Danish leaders believe that showing strength is the only way to prevent conflict. They remember how appeasement in the past only encouraged authoritarian aggression. That's why Denmark's defense policy has shifted from reactive to proactive. They're not waiting for Russia to make the first move, they're preparing in advance. And this has the backing of the Danish people, who overwhelmingly support NATO membership and see Putin's Russia as a major threat to European stability. For Denmark, the Baltic Sea isn't just a geographic space, it's a shield that protects their democracy and their freedom. The Russian response has been fierce. Moscow has deployed new Iskander missiles to Kaliningrad and increased naval patrols. Russian state television airs constant propaganda about Denmark being a puppet of Washington. The Kremlin accuses NATO of encircling Russia while ignoring the fact that its own actions in Ukraine and the Baltic are what triggered this response. Yet beneath the bravado, Russia knows it's at a disadvantage. Its Baltic fleet is aging, and many of its ships are vulnerable to NATO's superior technology. Economic sanctions have slowed down military modernization, leaving Moscow struggling to maintain a strong presence in the region. Meanwhile, Denmark's cooperation with its neighbors has only deepened. Joint military drills, intelligence, sharing agreements, and rapid response plans have made the Northern Alliance more coordinated than ever before. The recent announcement that NATO will permanently station more troops in the Baltic states further strengthens this defense line. Denmark's defiance isn't just symbolic, it's backed by real capability. This unity is something Putin cannot easily break. The Kremlin hoped that energy pressure and propaganda would divide Europe, but instead it has forged unprecedented solidarity. As this standoff intensifies, the world watches closely. The Baltic Sea could become the next major flashpoint, a place where a single miscalculation might ignite a regional war. Yet for now, deterrence is holding. Denmark's bold stance has forced Russia to think twice before acting rashly. It's a high-risk strategy, but it's one grounded in principle that small nations must stand firm against aggression, and that peace can only be preserved through strength and unity. Denmark's defiance has become a symbol across Europe that size doesn't determine power, resolve does. In the coming months, we'll see more military exercises, more political rhetoric, and more pressure on both sides. But one thing is clear: Denmark is not backing down. The message to Moscow is simple: the Baltic Sea will not fall under Russian control. It belongs to all nations that respect international law and peace. And if Putin continues to test the limits, he'll find that Denmark, backed by NATO, is ready to defend every inch of it. This story isn't just about geopolitics, it's about courage. Denmark's decision to stand up to a superpower reflects a broader shift in Europe's mindset. Gone are the days of hesitation and neutrality. Today, small nations like Denmark are taking responsibility for their security and for the future of Europe. The Baltic Sea has become a front line in the struggle between democracy and authoritarianism, and Denmark's defiance has shown that even the smallest nations can make the biggest impact. So as the Baltic Sea grows tense and the world watches every naval move, Denmark's message remains clear: they will defend freedom, no matter the cost. The Baltic is not Russia's backyard anymore. It's the new front line of NATO, where every move matters and every ship counts. This is a defining moment not only for Denmark, but for Europe as a whole. And as history has shown, those who stand firm in the face of aggression often become the ones who shape the future. Denmark's defiance in the Baltic may well be remembered as the moment the tide turned in the balance of power in Northern Europe.